Alright, what's up, yins guys? Time for another video. Yeah, here's a video I've been meaning to get around to do, and finally getting around to it. This can be one of the biggest questions, or one of the biggest paradoxes, if you will. You can rightly make a paradox out of it, or make it whatever you want it to be, but since I've been in college courses before and everything too, I wanted to come up with this question because I talked with people, even my partner, because she did some classes of some kind, and not everybody, wherever you are. And this matters if you don't believe in anything or whatever, or if you're spiritual or have some kind of beliefs. I want to cover this. The question of, is it really possible to avoid plagiarism? I mean, well, there's the one thing, the blatant, outright plagiarism. A little bit of everybody does. TV preachers, anybody who does public speaking, writes books, whether they're religious, whether they're far-right politics or far-left politics, gender stuff. And any idea you come with, is it really yours, even though you think it's yours? And even some people with certain beliefs, whether it's Christianity. And I kind of sarcastically got in arguments with my own mother about this. You know how your parents sometimes this is not about bashing any parents, whether you're my lurkers or my people that are, you want to call them somewhat subscribers. I don't want to be all big in myself and say I have fans or fan base. I would say I have subscribers, people somewhat like me. No matter who you are, I mean, I understand there's the blatant, outright plagiarism, and then there's the unintended stuff. And I am almost leaning toward damn near every idea you get, even you think it's yours and it's not. All right. You ever come up with a joke, right? And you can go a long time thinking it was a joke you thought of, and then maybe you'll see a comedian on TV. You'll see the copyright on the end of the show that it's a couple years old, and this comedian said your joke or close. Somewhere in this world, you think you came up with a joke, and somebody on TV, maybe in a rerun of some comedy show or something, somebody else came up with the joke. You know what I mean? Or, and from the day we're born, we get our thoughts, whether they're negative words, whether we go along with certain things and repeat things because whether our parent, or a television or radio being on when you're a kid, you'll have some things as a child, you repeat because one parent says it. Maybe one parent is this way and one parent's that way. Even though you haven't developed no real opinions yet. Oh, and if you're even 2-3 years old, even younger, you can follow along with a thought or say it, whether it's a swear word, right? Be influenced by it, but yet at the same time you can be rebelling against the concept too. And maybe even a small child, you come up with something. Maybe you're not old enough to think something with this or that is wrong or right, but you may develop some kind of opinions or rebel against something, whether you're old enough to be rational about it. Yeah, is anything really yours? As I had college classes, you had to write a paper. And when I got into college classes, unlike, years ago when there was no internet, the instructor or teacher or whatever would be telling you right up front that they check for plagiarism. They run checks because they have the internet now. And there's like these requirements of if you have references where you're getting something, if it's something you've been reading, you say you're supposed to say so. But and there's another scenario too I wanted to outline too, which in my opinion, this is my opinion too. Do you appear more intelligent or brilliant by leading, let me try this again. what makes you more brilliant or appear more brilliant or intelligent or anything, whether you write a book or you're speaking? Which thing makes you look or appear better? Going up there and acting like all those words were exactly yours? Or if you're a person who is always making sure that he makes references, whether it's from something he read, whether it's an author or a comedian or something. Which is it? I actually, really, in my personal opinion, don't have any respect for somebody that, whether it's a preacher or anybody, that they act like everything they say is theirs, like they're so brilliant that they never quote. Oh, don't get me wrong, you can quote something and be overly gratified too, but there's a lot of people you don't have respect for that they act like, you could tell they practically act like everything they came up with and they wrote a book. And then I have more respect for somebody that makes a lot of references to something. And even in my videos, even they're not perfect, I am always more than happy to quote, I don't know, whether it's the late George Carlin or Henry Rollins or something I heard another YouTuber say. Because I think right here on YouTube, for one thing too, even if you never even heard anything from a particular YouTuber, somebody will tell you, say, oh, you must have been watching so-and-so, or you're trying to steal his sayings, you know what I mean? But like I said before, you can come up with a joke or a saying, a statement, and never saw the person and actually think something is yours. But at the same time, you're not afraid to quote somebody else and everything else too. And there's that scenario where you have a parent, you know, you could be rebelling against a parent, not like you're bashing parents, right? But I'm saying the very first person who will give you hell or put you down and say, if you have a different opinion of them, oh, you're letting so-and-so put stuff in your head, whether it's, say, your mother and the father that's no longer living there in the house that she divorced. Oh yeah, you let your father put your whatever music you're listening to or whatever that person you're listening to. Oh, you're letting them put stuff in your head. Yeah, like in my opinion, somebody on the far left will, I don't know, let's say gun control, or it could be anything. I had people comment, oh, you must have been watching blah 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 just because you believe in some reasonable right to bear arms. Well, my point is, everybody, as it is, will accuse you of letting somebody put something in your head, yet you're not afraid to quote somebody, and then you'll say, yeah, but so-and-so said this, and I don't agree with this. I think it's a better policy to quote people that you say quotes from people you hate and from people you like. Don't act like anything is really yours. I don't know, people have more respect, even though you're being a blatant asshole in your ways, all right, in your own way. At least you're being honest, you know what I mean? And I personally think it's unavoidable. Everything, is any of your stuff you say really yours? I mean, like I said, from the day you were a small child learning to speak, and the only thing you can really truly avoid, any aspect of plagiarism that you can truly avoid, is the blatant part of plagiarism, right? Where you swear up and down or act like something is yours. But if you got this far in this video too, I want to talk about stuff people do in their videos. In my case, some fitness things, and a little bit observing stuff that you're advertised on TV that people want to make money off, not just off of YouTube, right? The exercise things. I want to say, things that are like yoga and Pilates, right? Now on TV, they were selling a thing. Oh, they're slapping a new label on it and calling Payo or whatever the hell. Not bashing the people. I mean, nothing wrong with adding another name to a thing. I mean, not to accuse anybody of anything outright, but you can sort of do it, but as long as you don't act like oh, this is all yours, you came up with it. Be honest and say, I mean, that's just be an example. There's a lot of people out there. I'm not saying anybody who invented PO is that PO or whatever you call it is doing that. But I would, for example, not saying anything of mine, whether anybody likes it or not. Like I invented it. I have influences. And I also endorse because for my own convenience. Whether I'm out somewhere or like having to wear steel-toed boots, not wearing no prop or fitness clothing, something more practical that enhances where you are and what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't possibly honestly sell this. And the only thing I can really do is I couldn't even, quite frankly, write a book. If somebody asked me to, I wouldn't want to make a bunch of money. But say I did write a book, the only purpose for the book is not to make a bunch of money, and I'm not thinking I'd ever do it. Would be almost like on an idea or something, or say a book say you make a book and you're not selling it, you offer it as a free ebook. Even then, the only bad thing would be is if you're making money off of people and you're being dishonest. But then say you want to have a bunch of influences, you have some kind of influences, and maybe you invented a version or approach to something and you didn't see this particular activity going on yet, and you find something on, wait a minute, I do a little bit of that anyway. I'm like that too. I don't do other people's shit on YouTube, and there's a reason and a purpose for everything. But I would do a separate video on it later. I may have did videos like this before about the influences, but stuff that both dudes and chicks do in some sports, but a lot of it is revolved around stuff that I had to do work-wise. You know, during lunch break, say if you have a long 1-hour lunch break and you don't think you need an hour, you gotta have something to do, something that benefits you. But anyway, some stuff you see dudes and chicks do anyway, and maybe you use some kind of items like tools or whatever. Like an influence is a little bit of, you don't want to act like you're a damn Van Damme or Jack Reacher or anything, or any kind of, but you had some influences, put it that way. You know, some sports are a little bit of like non-combative baton stuff, which mostly women, chicks do, but some dudes are getting into it in other parts of the world. You can have a YouTube channel where there's a lot more dudes doing the baton thingy that was people in high school still doing, but at the same time you're doing it, you have a little bit of that, maybe resembles some kind of tools you're doing or activity you're doing anyway, right? Combine that with a little bit of other things you've seen, medieval sword and shield type exercises. And like I said, even though I'm not on the side of any kind of country that does bad stuff, and not saying all people are like that, but since I was anyway, one thing, the thing called the Persian arts exercise and sword arts, called the Zorqaneh, it was in Iran. I mean, I'm not with Iran in any kind of way about any of the shit they do. The common people ain't all bad, but I said, wait a minute, some of us Americans and people in other countries buy the metal, the steel and wooden Indian clubs anyway, which I own a couple, and plus I worked in a scrap yard. Hey, take any kind of heavy tool or piece of bar that's weighted and crank up them wrists, you know what I'm saying? Knuckle push-ups, and say how the Zorqaneh from those other countries, they have a push-up board and they run around, carry it like it's a sword, do some dancing back and forth. Hey, was that any different than you have any kind of training for football or basketball, jumping back and forth, handling a weighted ball, you know what I mean, or kettlebell? And then maybe you got to use certain tools and you carry heavy objects to toss around. You know what I'm saying? But yet it can be like multi-purpose, but I'm going on and on too much about that. But my point is everything that, whether you say while you're talking or stuff that you physically do. If you got this far in this video, is anything you say and do that you start doing, and even when you're doing it in your own way, your own thing, is it really yours? The only part that's really yours is your approach to it. And you can, if you got influenced by a thing you saw or heard, you can be honest by outright saying it. But there is also the things that, hey, you came up with an idea and you didn't see this particular thing, and you were doing it. Then you see somebody do it or say it later and be like, oh, wait a minute, I do that, and that reinforces my idea that I should keep doing that thing, right? I know this was like a little bit of rambling, but I mean, I regard this, if you got this far in this video, I regard this as like a big paradox, in a sense that you can be blatantly dishonest, or unknowingly you think you came up with something, whether it's some kind of quote or an activity, you think it's yours and you find out later that it ain't, you know what I mean? But anyway, to end this video, summing it all up without being repetitive, yes, you can avoid blatant, outright plagiarism, but anything else that you may have came up with, you find out you thought you came up with, whether it's a joke or an idea that you didn't see, well, that just happens. But if you did get influenced by something, you know, be honest about it. But I don't really think every single thing is yours, even though you think it is, you know. It is only to a point, you know.